Hey everyone, it's Kirk Mastin here at Mastin Labs, and today we're going to be guiding you through getting a beautiful, light, and airy edit with your photos. And I'm going to be going over not only what presets to use, but also how to get that look that you want in camera. So a lot of it is in camera, and we're going to go over what you need to just nail that beautiful, light, and airy look that is so popular with wedding and family portraiture today. So stay tuned, we're going to get right into it. I'm going to quickly go over our three-step edit process. It's something we're really proud of here at Mastin Labs. By emulating film in a perfect model of film, we're able to make editing simple, and all you got to do are three things. You need to apply the preset. It's very important that you do that first. All films have kind of a built-in white balance, like the real films actually have it built in. So you can't really guess the white balance before you get started with the look you want. So apply your preset first. Second, you're going to want to adjust exposure, usually up, and that is because most camera sensors will favor underexposure or force your photo to be a little bit underexposed to protect highlights, so you often have to bring that up, even if it looks perfect in camera. Not a big deal. Lastly, you're going to need to adjust white balance and tint. White balance is really easy for most people. Is it too cool? Is it too warm? Tint is a little bit harder, and that's if it's too green or too magenta, and I will show you tricks how to deal with that, because that is where you unlock beautiful skin tones. Little secret, it's not looking at the skin to nail that part, it's actually looking in the background, but I'll show you. Okay, so let's get started. We've got some really nice photos today. These were all shot with the intention of being light and airy photos, and I'm not going to be trying to make a photo that can't be light and airy into light and airy, because it just won't work. Garbage in, garbage out. You got to start with something that can be light and airy to get that nice light and airy look, and I'll be talking about what makes each photo work in that way so you can do it yourself at home or on your next shoot. So one thing you're going to notice between all of these photos here is that they're shot in fairly even light. So either in open shade, like this photo here, shot in this kind of doorway, like it's probably slightly overcast, and we've got nice even lighting on the subject, or here where we've got our subjects underneath the open shade of a tree. Very, very classic situations. And in this situation, we've got the model who is mostly under open shade, nice even lighting, except for this super bright spot here on the side. Not a big deal, it's not ideal, but I'll show you how to work around that. But you can see in every single one of these photos, these are all raw photos, that the lighting is pretty much nice and even. And that is super important. Now, one thing that you can also look for is backlight. So I don't really have one that has a really clear example of backlighting, but it's the idea that you've got a little bit of the sun behind your model shooting, light like kind of around the edge of their hair or like around their shoulder, but that sun is not really like in your lens. It's out of frame, but providing backlight, and that's also a very classic lighting situation for light and airy. But the simplest way to get it pretty much every time is to look for open shade. So that's the first thing you got to look for. Second thing, you're going to need to have your models or whoever you're shooting in clothing that is fairly neutral. I'm talking like white, gray, beige, champagne, rose, colors that are not like super dark. No patterns. You're looking for something. You're looking to make the photo as light and airy just by the way it's put together before you even shoot. So the models are wearing very neutral light clothing, and you can see that in every single one of these photos. Even here, see, we've got pink, kind of pink champagne, white, 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 white. And here, I mean, he's in a dark tuxedo. That's okay. It's still kind of a neutral color, but she's dressed in white and the background is very white, and same here. So that's the second part, is your models need to be dressed in a way where you can really, really see, or where you don't have like really bright or bold or stripes, and any kind of colors like that. The last thing is the background. The background. It really is important where you shoot. You got to have all parts right. It's like cooking a very delicate dish, and if any part of it is off, it just is not fantastic anymore. It's like cooking the most amazing meal and you forgot to put salt in it. You could do everything else right, and you forgot that one little part, or you overcooked the meat or something, and it just isn't excellent. So you need to have the right kind of clothing. You need to have light, very light clothing, light and neutral. You need to have very even light. So like under a doorway, open shade, under a tree, just even light. And the last thing that you need is you need to have a background that works for a light and airy photo. And you'll notice a similarity between all of these backgrounds. They're all mostly out of focus. They're also either green or outdoors or in front of something very neutral as well. And you're not seeing like, you know, city skyline, and like you're not seeing pipes coming out of everything and like people walking by and like little dark corners where there's, you know, just a lot of like dark spaces in the photo. They're going to pull your eye to that part, kind of like a black hole of attention. You don't have that in any of these backgrounds. They're all kind of built for a light and airy look. So all of that you have to have in order to get a perfect light and airy look. And now we're actually going to get to the edit. A lot of people think it's just a magic bullet. Oh, if I have the right preset, I can make it look light and airy. I can make it look like my favorite photographer's photos. That is impossible. It'll never, ever happen. Never. You have to get these essentials down first, and then the editing is super easy. So, all right, let's dive in. And if you have any questions while I'm going, please ask them in the comments. I love answering your questions in real time. So if any of this is confusing to you, if you want any more clarification, just ask and I'm happy to help you out. So, okay, so on this first photo, this is by Dreamwood Photography. I love this photo. She actually has two different colored eyes. I didn't notice this for the longest time, but one is like brown and I think this other one is like green. I love little details like that. I like these little rings. I like the way her hand is really interesting to me, and her expression. Really, really good use of expression in the eyes. I don't care for this big bright spot here, but we can take care of that. So the pack that you're going to want to kind of dive into for a light and airy look in general is going to be Fuji Color Original. That is like, this pack is kind of a one-trick pony, but it's a really good pony. I mean, it is like the best pony on the planet for light and airy, and anything you pick in here is going to work really, really well as a base for a light and airy look. I'm just going to go right into a classic, which is Fuji 400H. So I'm going to apply Fuji 400H. It's going to make the greens kind of more minty. It's going to expand the dynamic range of the photo considerably without making it look HDR. That's very important. I am not a fan of HDR whatsoever, but a very nice soft film model for this photo. Next, in the second step, it's going to be adjusting exposure. In general, light and airy photos are light and airy a lot of the time through exposure too. So we're going to take the exposure slider and we can pull that up considerably without the photo breaking apart. There's probably some people at home going, oh my God, like it looks so crappy. It's like, look at this, it's pure white, it's blowing apart. There's no detail. If I hit the J key, you'll see that there is detail. So if there wasn't, it would turn red. Let's see if I can make it happen. Okay, those red areas actually have no detail if you were to print. I mean, the photo looks ridiculous, but the way that Mastin Labs works is we emulate real film, and that protects the highlights no matter what you do, essentially, which is great for you and your clients. So I applied Fuji 400H, increased the exposure. I'm going to work on temperature and tint now. Fuji films in general look best on just the other side of cool, towards the warm side. So if I take the temperature slider and go down, I can get to a point where it feels too cool. Like that is like definitely too cool for me. But as I go up, I kind of like to start with it being too cool and go up to where it just feels warm, which is like right about there. If you take Fuji 400H and you warm it up too much, it starts to look like Portra 400. So that might be like a little bit too much inside baseball talk, but which means like talk that you, for people in Europe, what that means is I'm saying things that would only make sense to you if you had as much knowledge about actual films as I do, which probably many of you do, but it may be confusing. What I'm saying is if you warm this up too much, it looks like a different film that you don't want it to look like. So start on the side of cool, warm it up until you get right on the border, and that's going to give you your best color. Okay, so that's temperature, and then we're going to do tint. So here's my little secret about tint, and we have other videos. We have an entire video just on tint. That's how important it is, which you can also watch on YouTube. But here is the secret tip, just boiled down. Tint is where you get good skin tones. And the one weird trick that the casinos don't want you to know is that you don't look at skin to get good skin tones. You look in the background. You look for things that you believe to be neutral. So like I'm looking back here and I think these are gray rocks. I can also look at her shirt, and this is like a linen shirt, and I can be pretty sure that this shirt is white. Not pure white, but I can see if it's a little too green or too magenta, and I can adjust my tint using these two spots. Does that make sense? If I was to look at her skin, I could try to do my best guess as to whether this is too magenta or green, but it's never going to be as good as looking at something that's neutral, ever. Looking at this photo, it's maybe not the best example because I don't see a tint in either direction. Maybe on some of the other ones I will, and I'll show you when that time comes. But I'm going to make no tint adjustments on this photo. Okay, last thing. So that's the 3-step workflow. And if you were to just do that, you would get, come on, there we go. Well, actually, this is not quite the correct before and after. You would get from this to this. That's your basic 3-step edit. Super simple because we have the right background, the right clothing. The light could be a little bit better, but it's not bad. And you can get a nice light and airy photo. If you want to make it even more light and airy, you can go into our tone profile section. And a lot of our photographers do this. Probably the majority do. They go into the tone profile section, which is actually a contrast control section, where you can either make the shadows darker, more bold, or you can bring out detail, and you can do the same for highlights. So we talked about this bright area before. The way you can knock that down without making the photo look like HDR, and you can also preserve that film look, is just by going to either highlight soft, and you can see as I roll over that, it just really tackles that bright spot, or you can do all soft. What all soft does is it also softens the shadows. So what a lot of Mastin Labs photographers do, probably the majority, is they apply Fuji 400H and then they immediately apply all soft. Like, that's what I do too. It's a setting from the Fuji Frontier scanner where all of our presets and styles are made. And I wanted for years ago, 9 years ago, I wanted to copy the controls of that scanner into Lightroom, and we kept them, and people they just love tone profiles. So here we are. Yes, so there it is with all soft. If you want to go even more light and airy, when you use all soft, you can then push up exposure even more, and nothing bad is going to happen to the photo. So now we have kind of as far as you can push this photo. We go from this to this. If I hit J, you can see there's detail in the shadows and the highlights, and it's ready for your client, ready to print, and it looks great. Okay, let's move on. It's a lot of talking for one photo, but I really want to make sure that anyone who's watching, you understand just to your core how this works, because I don't want it to be frustrating. Anyone can achieve this look. I don't even think you need to go to a workshop or pay a ton of money to do it. You really don't. It's just about knowing those very key concepts about even light, the right wardrobe, the right background, and the right presetter style. That's it. That's it. It's so simple. I mean, go to workshops, they're fun, but if you can't afford one right now or you're stuck at home or whatever, you can get a light and airy look just by following what I'm telling you in this video. So, all right, here's a photo by yours truly. shot in Palm Springs. I just wanted to show one of my own photos because I don't do that very often anymore. And I'm going to edit this for you. So I'm going to do Fuji 400H, and then I'm going to show you what 800Z looks like in comparison to kind of go a little further. So I'm going to kind of copy the edit I did before and then show you some differences. So this is Fuji 400H. Going to increase the exposure. The photo is obviously too cool. I mean, almost anyone can tell you that, which is fine because I like starting from cool and going to warm. It's just easier. And I'm just going to warm it up to maybe about here. So that's just right on the side of being cool. Now I'm going to look at the background. I'm going to look at some neutrals. So his suit is blue, like really navy blue, but I remember that his tie was black. I'm looking at the concrete down here. I'm not really getting a sense of if it's too magenta or too green, but I can tell from his tie, and there's some terrible chromatic aberration here. This has nothing to do with presets. This is just what happens when you shoot a 50mm lens wide open. You get this like purple fringing, easy to take care of. But I'm looking at his tie, and I think it's a little bit magenta. So I'm not looking at their skin, I'm looking at the tie, okay? And this is how I adjust tint. I just go towards green just a tiny bit until the tie doesn't look magenta. I zoom back out, they have great skin tones. If you watch all the other hundreds of videos that we've done, that's how I do it on every single one, and it's so important that we made a video just about this technique. Okay, so there is your basic light and airy edit with Fuji 400H. I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to do all soft because this dress is kind of popping off a little bit too hot. So I'm going to do all soft, and that feels like a nice edit. I would probably go in with this spot brush here and just like, you know, get rid of whatever this crap is on the ground. People just throwing their gum on the ground, just like animals. I've done it myself, so what am I saying? Anyway, yeah, you get rid of the spots, and I did a terrible job. You get the point. And now you have a light and airy photo. One other thing you can do is we have some tools in our toolkit like auto transform. Don't need it in this photo, but we could do lens correction. And that gets rid of the dark corners around the sides, and I find that's kind of a nice final step. And if I want to take it all the way, the last thing I do is I always crop my verticals 4.3 or 4.5. So just like that. And now you have something that looks more like a magazine cover. That cropping your verticals a little bit shorter looks so good. I can't recommend it enough. Just a super easy hack that you can just do now. Start right now doing it. I don't think the ratio of the frame of a normal camera, like not medium format but a 35mm camera, I don't think it was ever meant to be vertical. It's just too tall. Whereas like medium format looks fantastic vertical because it's a little bit shorter, and so I just do that with every vertical that I shoot on digital. I just crop it a little bit shorter. Great tip. Okay, I'm gonna duplicate this. And I want to quickly show you the difference between Fuji 400H and 800Z and 160NS in case you're wondering. So same photo. Fuji 400H is like the desaturated light and pastel light and airy look. 800Z is the more colorful version. So see, as I go over that, it almost, so your eyes get used to this and you go, oh, that looks amazing. I love it. That is the light and airy to me, right? And then you go to anything else with more color and you're like, whoa, now it looked almost too desaturated, but I promise you, for whatever reason, this is the look. It's still the look. It's been like 5 years and it's still like the look that everyone is aiming for, at least in California, for weddings. I kind of like a little more colorful, so I use 800Z a lot, and you can see that it just kind of pushes a little more color into the greens, into the skin. It adds a little bit of magenta in the midtones and highlights, which is what film does, especially 800Z, and I like it. So that's 800Z. I could do all soft on that too, just to bring the dress in. And let's make one more copy. And I don't know if this is going to show off 160NS or not. The next photo will. 160NS really emphasizes cyan and pink. Oh, it does. It does. Okay, so watch. So this is 800Z, 160NS. You're going much more like cyan, green, and pink. I'm going to actually bring the exposure down with 160NS and maybe just add just a tiny bit of magenta, a tiny bit of warmth. Like I said at the top of the show, every film, every real film, when you scan it, has its own inherent white balance. It sounds bizarre, like how could that possibly be? But it is true. If you were to take a Frontier scanner and scan like 160NS and then scan Kodak Ektar back to back, you would think that your scanner is broken because you're starting with such different white balances in the film. But that is part of the look. So that is why you do white balance at the end of the Mastin Labs 3-step workflow, because you can't anticipate that white balance at the start, as I've just shown you. So let me compare all of these here. Oops. I promise I'm going to hit the right key, all these shortcut keys, and we don't want that one in there. All right, here we go. Yes, I have used Lightroom for at least 2 or 3 hours in my life, and there we go. So we've got 400H on the left, 800Z in the middle. It's very like bold, very colorful, and then we've got something that's kind of in between with 160NS. All three are like really nice light and airy looks, and you saw how I used the All Soft tool also, and I also used lens correction. They're great tools. They really make it easy to get that light and airy look. So there you go. Bada bing, bada boom. All right, let's move on. Sometimes people ask, how are skin tones affected? How do I edit for skin tones, especially if there are different skin tones in the same photo? This is also a video that we've done just specifically on this topic. And the long and the short of it is, there is a correct way for a film to look, and you want to edit to that, and the skin tones kind of lie where they lie, and they're going to look good. They're going to look really good for the most part. Sometimes some skin tones don't work as well with certain films, but you can usually make it work. And then people ask, well, who do I adjust the temperature and tint for, like which skin tone? If you do it correctly for one, it'll be correct for the other. It's not like you have to choose, I promise. Color either locks in correctly in a photo or it doesn't. Whether we're talking about a person or a building or a fire hydrant or a car or an animal, either the color is going to lock in correctly or not. And that means when you're working with different skin tones, and there's a really nice variety in this photo, it's either going to lock in correctly or not. So let me show you what I mean. Let's do 160NS. This photo has a lot of like really nice cyan and pink colors in it, so it should pop really nicely. So there's 160NS. As far as exposure goes, I'm going to go up quite a bit and then kind of get it under control with All Soft. So I'm going to go up. And now I'm going to go to the temperature and tint slider. This photo is way too cool. Yeah, that's just it. It's just way too cool. So let's warm it up. And you can see as I go up, all the skin tones just kind of lock into place. They look great. It's not like I'm having to choose between either skin tone. They both look good. And then as far as tint goes, I'm going to look again for neutrals. So fortunately, he's wearing a white shirt and they're all wearing white. So I can kind of cruise around and look for neutrals. And I'm going to say, if anything, there's a little bit of magenta in some neutrals here, not much. So I'm going to go just a tiny bit towards green. I mean, hardly at all. Yeah, I went from plus 15 to like plus 6. That's like as short of a distance that you can move your mouse as possible. And now you have really nice skin tones for everybody, for both of them, for the kids. And that's what I mean by it's just like if you lock in the color correctly with white balance and tint, it's going to look good everywhere. So it's very important. And then the last thing I would do is probably throw all soft on here again because I'm just kind of addicted to it. And here is before and after. Beautiful family, looks great. And you saw how easy that is if you have all the elements in place. Soft light, neutral clothing, great background, cool expressions, and the right preset. All right, we have a question.
Yeah, it's from Jose Medina.
Okay.
Or Medina.
Oh yeah, Jose Medina, he's awesome. He's the GOAT.
Yeah.
Greatest of all time.
He was curious if it's possible to achieve a light and airy look with black and white.
Okay, so Jose asks if it's possible to achieve a light and airy look with black and white. Absolutely, absolutely yes. There is no black and white preset in the Fuji original pack. I would probably go to the Ilford pack, which is our dedicated black and white pack, and I would choose something like Delta 3200, which is a very glowy, grainy black and white film. I can show a quick example. It looks best on a photo like, oh, maybe something like this, where we've got a really simple subject matter. There's not like a busy background. It's like this photo, like you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, this could be black and white. I'll edit this in color and black and white, but I'll do a light and airy black and white edit for you, Jose. So let's close Fuji Original and go to Ilford Original. And I'm going to pick Delta 3200. From there, I'm going to increase the exposure. I'm not going to worry about white balance and tint. It doesn't really have that much of an impact unless it's really far off before you start. So I'm going to leave that alone. And I'm going to take exposure, bring it up quite a bit. And we're getting that kind of nice glow through here. And it's like hella grainy, I know. That is what Delta 3200 looks like. If you are a light and airy fine art wedding photographer, Delta 3200 is probably your black and white film if you're shooting film, like 80% of the time. And there's people who are probably like throwing popcorn at their screen going, no, I use like HP5 or something, but whatever. That's just my experience. And then I would use all soft. Let's see. Yeah, all soft. I'm going to crop out whatever's going on down there. Boop. The light is not like super dynamic here, so it's kind of hard to tell, but that is like a light and airy look. There's this weird like sticker on the wall back here. Gotta get rid of that. All right. And do we want to do any kind of like lens correction? That doesn't need it. And maybe do warm tone paper. So that's a kind of a warm final toning for black and white. But that is how I would do a kind of a light and airy black and white edit. It's very much the same principles. Delta 3200 is a very low contrast film with a very high luminance for a lot of the color channels underneath, so you get a glowy look, which is well suited to a light and airy black and white look. So I hope that was useful, Jose. All right, I'm gonna try to like knock out these last four and do all of them today. All right, this is another photo I took down in Palm Springs. And this is interesting because I'm just gonna admit to it, I kind of screwed up the exposure. It happens to me a lot. The key is never show your mistakes. I mean, unless you're trying to teach, but if you're trying to show clients, don't show your less good photos. That's for another video. Okay, so with this photo, we're gonna go back up to Fuji Original. And looking at the colors in this image, we've got this kind of nice like desert background. I think 800Z would look pretty cool. That's a little bit too much. How about 400H? I think 400H is gonna look nice. Okay, so I apply 400H. I'm gonna straighten this because I can't even stand it. And now I'm going to adjust exposure, temperature, and tint. All right, so here's where I made my mistake. If I hit J, actually, before I even start, let me just show you. So if I hit J, you can see I really overexposed her blouse. That's not so great. And if I take the exposure down, you can see there's just no detail here. So I don't know, I kind of made a mistake there. But it won't matter because we can kind of hide that with a tone profile. So I applied Fuji 400H. I'm going to go to exposure. I like where the midtones are on her face and her hair and her hands. So I think I'm going to leave exposure where it is. As far as temperature goes, I can go just a tiny bit warmer. Again, you don't want to go too warm because then it starts to look like Portra 400, which is not a bad thing. Not to diss Portra 400 at all. I shot that probably most in 20 years out of any film. It's just that if you're really trying to get a specific kind of Fuji look, especially light and airy, you want to keep it cool. Keep your cool. Tint. Boy, let's see. She's wearing a white dress, so that's good. I'm looking around. Everything looks pretty good. I can see maybe a little magenta down in here. So I could go just a skosh, which is a very small measurement, towards green. So just a tiny bit. And now her dress looks really even. It was a tiny adjustment from -6 to -4. That is about as small as it gets, or -4 to -6. Now it's -7. Okay, so there's your basic edit. So we started with a photo that's already very light and airy. Like, this is all super intentional. This is a styled shoot. I'm like, here, take this crystal with a plant in it for no reason. Why is she saying the desert with a crystal? There is no good reason, none. It's just like making a pretty photo, but that's fine. And she's got really cool earrings. I just want to point that out, and cool hair. So I set everything up in my favor. It's a overcast day. It's actually raining, which was really super fun, especially when you have a hair and makeup team. See, there's a raindrop. Super overcast, so fairly even light. It could have been more even. There's some contouring on her face because overcast can still be kind of bright, but it works. She's a very neutral dress, a very neutral background. It works as a light and airy image. Now, here's where I would take it further. I would then use either probably highlight soft. I like the shadows, so I'm not going to use all soft. I'm going to keep those shadows in place. I'm going to do highlight soft. That brings in the dress. Very important. Okay, at the very beginning of this video, I talked about the background. The background, if it has anything that's like super dark in it, like a dark splotch, it is literally a black hole sucking the viewer's attention towards the dark object. Where do you see a dark object in this photo? I see it in the sagebrush plant down by her legs. So I'm going to try my best to get rid of that. If I want to go really light and airy. There's two ways I'm going to do this. One is I'm going to go use lens correction. So that gets rid of the vignetting and shadows and distortion in the image. And in fact, it corrected it so much, I can bring down the exposure. Kind of went a little buck wild. And the last thing I can do is my good old cropperoonie. That is the technical term. And I'm going to get rid of as much of that as I can. And now I have a very nice light and airy image. Ta-da! And here is before and after. So, hope you enjoyed that. That is my image. Let's go to this one here. And then we got one more after that, and then we'll close it out. If you have any questions while I'm editing, please let me know. Now is the time to ask, because after this is over, it's going to be recording forever and ever and ever, and you won't be able to ask questions. Yes, we have a question.
Yeah, this one is from Trent. I think he was talking about the last image you were just working on, but he was asking what would happen to that image if you used Portra and went a little darker.
So Trent asks, what would happen to this image if I used Portra and went a little darker? Are you saying moody? Yeah, so in another video, we talk about how to get a dark and moody look. It's a great video, you should definitely watch it. But one of the key things about a dark and moody look that's often overlooked is that it's not so much about the preset. It's about the photo actually being dark i.e., like darkness, the darkness. It's like dark. So like by a window inside, or a beam of light coming through some trees, really kind of hard light. That's really a key part of a dark and moody look. And the second part is, and often overlooked, moody. So dark and moody look means that the person should look mysterious or moody. She does look moody, so maybe this will work. The light is not right, but let's try it. It's a good suggestion. So let's go to our most dark and moody pack, which is Portra Pushed, and let's see what we can do. So I'm gonna go just kind of roll over these and see where would be a good starting point. Now we are trying to make an image that is not shot for dark and moody, look dark and moody. So your results will vary. Let's just pick the darkest, moodiest, which is Portra 800 push 2 stops. I'm gonna have to bring the exposure down. The white balance is just totally whack. Let's fix that. Let's go a little bit more magenta. And I don't know, maybe cool it off. The lighting, it looks cool. I mean, it looks like an Urban Outfitter ad, to be honest, which is not a bad thing. I think it definitely needs all soft or highlight soft. Let's highlight soft, and then here's all soft. I think highlight soft is good. So this is with Portra Pushed 800 push 2 stops. This is a very extreme example of Portra. I'm not sure this is what you meant, but if you're trying to get a dark and moody look, I would go more towards that. And I'll compare them for you so you can see. Come on, there we go. So in this image, it's an image, cooked two ways. One is dark and moody, and one is light and airy. This is actually kind of a great example of how important wardrobe, lighting, and location is. Yeah, I mean, it works as a dark and moody image. It's okay. I mean, I think it really works like right up here at her face, but you kind of lose me right here because the lighting just doesn't work. And I think it just looks better as a dark and moody image. But I hope that helps. If you want kind of a plain Jane, Portra look, like not dark and moody, I can do that for you too real quick. And plain Jane is not quite right. It's just very neutral. So we'll go to the Portra original pack. Same film, not pushed. That's a whole nother video where we talk about pushed film. Very interesting. Changes the look completely, whether you're shooting real film or using our presets or styles. But that's a whole nother thing to talk about. Let's just do a plain old, just clean and neutral Portra 400 look. We're taking her out of the shadows. Again, I gotta adjust white balance just a little bit. And Portra is meant to be warmer. And let's do, what did we do before? Highlight soft? Yes. Just so we're kind of comparing apples to apples here. All right, so now we got all three. Let's bring them up. Let's bring up our contestants. See who wins the Price is Right. So we've got Fuji 400H on the left. We've got from the Fuji original pack. In the middle, we've got Portra 800 push 2 stops from the Portra push pack. That is our dark and moody. And then on the far right, we have Portra 400 from the Portra original pack, which is kind of our clean and neutral look. Just a really nice base look. It was one of my favorite films to shoot in my entire career, was Portra 400, because it worked for like everything. So there are three completely different looks. I hope that's helpful. My advice is buy all three packs, obviously. No, I'm kidding. Well, I'm kind of kidding, not kidding. I don't know. Whatever. Take it as you will. I know photographers, they end up buying everything. Doesn't matter what you have. You're like, oh, there's another camera. It must be better. I'm going to buy it. And then there's like this other thingy. I'm going to buy it. But no, really. Okay, really, I take that all back. Save your money. Buy a plane ticket. Make cool photos. That's the best advice. Okay. Or buy all three packs. Whatever. All right. So hopefully that helped, Trent. And let's just whip through these last few photos, and we'll call it good until next week. So, on this image, this is by Addictive Creatives. I love the color palette. It's fantastic. I love that her skirt matches the walls. It's really cool. There's like basically 3 colors in this photo. We have her skin tone, we have like kind of this like robin's egg blue, and then we've got this pink. I love it. It's great. Let's go to Fuji Original. I think, let's see. Ooh, yeah, 800Z. That's fun. Okay, so 800Z's got a little bit of pink, like I said before, in the midtones and highlights, and that's cool because it really stacks nicely on this photo. This is almost kind of venturing into Fuji push territory where we've got that light and airy look, but it's a little more bold, and you can kind of get there with 800Z. So that's 800Z. As far as exposure goes, I can go up a little bit. Temperature and tint. Well, this is a very kind of special film, but I'm going to still do what I do. Look at the ground. Okay, I think the corner of this building, this is funny. This is where I've got to work with. Right here where the paint wore off, I believe that to be gray, so it looks a little bit pink to me. And if I zoom out, everyone's like going, yeah, obviously it's pink. But I highly recommend finding a neutral spot to judge that. Maybe this tree bark also is a good spot to look. So I'm going to add just a little bit of green. There we go. Yeah, that's super duper. That's great. All right, and then the contrast is kind of a lot, but I like it. It pops really well. This looks very editorial. Looks great. Very commercial, actually. Maybe, no, I'm going to leave it alone. I love it. Okay, so there is your 800Z kind of light and bold edit. This is a great time to use another tool that we have. Whoops, I just set the rating to 5. No reason. I think subconsciously I just really like this photo. Okay, here we go. So auto transform on is a cool tool. It will look at these lines in the photo and try to correct the perspective. And it's something that we added, I don't know, 6 months ago or so. We're always updating our packs, and as we discover new cool things, we want to give you those things. So lens correction on, let's see if, or not lens correction, auto transform. Ah, there we go. Super subtle. Barely moved, but now everything is straight. All the lines are straight and correct. And that little change just is very appealing to the viewer subconsciously. Just having everything be kind of on a flat canvas is really great. It's one of the reasons that I shot most of my career with a 50mm lens, because you can shoot everything like a flat canvas, and you can arrange everything in that space very, very easily without distortion and things like bending. And using a 50 plus correcting distortion and geometry in Lightroom, that's how I made my best photos. And we've taken the transform tool into every pack, so you have that just in one click, which is cool. All right, and then they're like, why isn't he cropping it? Okay, I'm doing it right now because it's vertical. There we go. There is your medium format image shot on not medium format. It just looks great. Okay, last image and your last chance to ask me a question. This is by Mark Bourdons. I just love this photo. It's so cool. I don't know where this person is. Like, I don't know. My first thought was like maybe Morocco or something. I don't know. Like, these baskets are so cool. And I like that she's framed in this kind of circular basket. It almost looks like a old Renaissance painting, like halo thing. So it's great. Your eye just goes right in. There's nice movement in the dress. I think this would work actually really good as a light and airy black and white image too. So I'll do both real quick. So here's Fuji 400H. As far as exposure goes, I'm pretty happy where the midtones are. I'm looking at her face as kind of a key midtone. Maybe I'll bring it down just a tiny bit. And then I'm looking at temperature and tint. It's still too warm, so I'm gonna bring it down just a little bit. And then as far as neutrals go, this is a real tough one. there isn't a thing in here that I can tell what it is that would be neutral. I know the ground, and if I corrected for this ground or sand down here, the image would be way too cool. So I just kind of got to wing it this time. And a good way to wing it is just to sweep the sweep means just move it back and forth a lot. There's a photographer named Zach Arias, who I really admire, who did this in a video like a billion years ago. And it's a great technique, but basically you do like giant sweeps, right? And then you make them shorter and shorter and shorter and smaller, and you will naturally land on a really nice tint. It's kind of like rocking it back and forth, and your brain will just go, you know what, that looks good. So that's where you leave it. So there's your very basic edit. There is a lot of contrast in this photo, more than I expected. So I'm going to use all soft. And actually looking at it again, it's a little bit magenta, maybe right about there. I used all soft, and then let's see if lens correction does anything nice. Yeah, kind of brings out a little more even lighting in the top and the bottom. I don't see any need for auto transform. I don't even know what it would lock onto in this photo. Well, that's actually not bad, but I'm going to leave it. And then I'm going to crop it the way that I like to crop it. And this crop takes out this little dark thing up here in the corner, which is kind of a bonus. I'm going to put her head at the top of the rule of thirds line, although I don't really necessarily believe that you need to follow that. I think we kind of have like a gut check as to where things should be. But that is a nice before and after. And I'm going to quickly do one last thing here. I'm going to copy this and make it black and white, because I think this will work really nicely as a light and airy black and white image. So I'm going to go back down to Ilford Original, go right to Delta 3200, and that looks super good. Actually, I'm going to do Delta 3200 medium format grain, just so it's not so grainy. Yeah, that looks great. Yeah, that's killer. Okay, let's see. Show both of them. Come on, render. There we go. What do you think? They both look good, don't they? I think it works either way. But this is a really nice photo to end it on. So yeah, so to kind of recap, you want to have nice and even light, as even as possible, however you get it, natural light. You want to have a nice neutral background. You want to have neutral clothing, and you want to have kind of the vibe set to be light and airy, meaning like not like ooh, like really moody, but just kind of light. And that plus some simple edits in Lightroom or Capture One, and you are good. And that is like the key to getting that light and airy look. It really, really is. Also, the more planning you put into a shoot ahead of time, the better. So I always ask people, like, send me what you're going to be wearing if I'm not in control of that, so I can kind of be in control a little bit. If they're looking for a light and airy look and they send you their outfits, like I would have them take a picture of it on the bed. I'd be like, you know what, everything's good, but that shirt has too many stripes in it, or it's like too bold of a color. Could you get something lighter? And they would switch it out, and that made all the difference. So important, these little details. But anyway, okay, I hope you enjoyed that. It was really, really fun. If you are just seeing this now, you've never heard of Mastin Labs, never seen me, you're just like all about light and moody, or light and airy, we've got a ton of other videos, like a treasure trove of light and airy and dark and moody and bold and vibrant and neutral editing videos on our YouTube channel. So if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe, hit that bell, don't miss anything, especially these live broadcasts. If you subscribe, you will get a notification and you won't miss a thing. Also, feel free to join our Mastin Labs community on Facebook. It's the friendliest photography community, hands down, voted by everybody in the world who's ever lived. I can back that up with science. But we're a very caring and loving community that is there to help everyone, regardless of where they are on their photography journey. There are no bad questions, so look us up on Facebook. Also, if you want to ask us a direct question, you can always go to m.me/Mastin Labs, and you can DM us, and we are more than happy to help you in any way we can. So, until next time, have a great day, and happy editing.